propose that this is not working, this is how we want it to work better. That is a continuous process that even the Senate is engaged in, Chair. So,
yes, and please be very precise. What's the name of the officer?
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Bramwell Simiu. I'm the County Chief Officer in charge of disaster management and coordination. And just to answer you on how you're dealing with this our current structure, we have the Disaster Risk Reduction Directorate, which focuses on mitigation and prevention of disasters. So this is a directorate that engages with the public and matters awareness, matters setting early warning systems, building community resilience through setting up some of the community volunteer response teams. Then we have the Directorate of Fire and Rescue, which really is a rescue agency, which focuses on responding to emergencies when called upon. The DRR unit also deals with matters of recovery, such as post-disaster support. Now, part of the reason we have challenges, Chairman and members, to implement this current law is that it's tailored around fire and rescue services. It does not give us the latitude to deal with matters mitigation or prevention or recovery adequately. And just to mention that this law was passed in 2015, but the disaster management sector was actually set up in 2018. Now, between 2018 and 2022, you will be aware, Chair, that we had a bit of political challenges, and for a large portion of that era, we didn't have a DG as sort of looked at within that law. So we were not able to operationalize it during that time. So when His Excellency took over, of course, one of the intentions was to, excuse me, then to operationalize this act. But having the opportunity as a subject matter experts and together with my colleagues in the sector, we were able then to look at three critical things. One was the leadership of disaster management, whether this particular act provided for that adequately, and it was found that it was there are major gaps in that. Secondly, we looked at the issue of command and control, as you correctly observed, and such as in the current situation that we find ourselves in. When you look at the issue of command and control, the law does not give us a proper framework that allows us to be able to deal with incidents. That act also does not capture the full scope of hazards that we face, so that you look at it as more of a response to fire act, as opposed to becoming a modern dynamic.
Bramwell, you're taking us back to where I wanted us to exit. I no longer want the argument on the advantages or disadvantages of that law.
Okay.
I just want to understand, how are you currently responding to disasters and emergencies?
Yes.
Particularly the flooding disaster that we have right now.
Yes.
You have explained the directorate.
Yes.
So you have explained that the tactical or operational bit of it.
Yes, Chair.
At the strategic level,
yes.
What do we have?
So as His Excellency mentioned, despite not operationalizing the law, we actually have this multi-sectoral committee that consists of all the line essential services sectors. So we have public health, we have works, we have mobility, we have environment. I chair that committee. It also ropes in the sub-county administration team and the Ngao team as part of that team. So this is a team that...
When is the last time you met?
We met, I think, 2 weeks ago. We met 2 weeks ago.
That's still at operational level. I'm looking for strategic direction.
Yes.
Because ultimately,
yes.
I want to see how the governor fits into that structure.
So that committee is actually convened by His Excellency the Governor and the Regional Commissioner, Mr. Kate. But then the delegated day-to-day management of the council, I chair that as the chair of the...
So that's more or less the council. It's only that it's a governor who chairs it.
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yes.
So it appears the problem is that it was designated to be chaired by the deputy governor, because if you're saying that exists with the regional commissioner, police commandant, and all those things, it's basically what is in the law.
It's more or less the same.
It's more or less the same. But the only difference is the chair.
Yeah. No, I mean, the Act doesn't recognize the regional commander, for instance. Yeah. It doesn't bring in the police commander. It's at county level. So it's a similar thinking in terms of the kind of people you need around the table, but without those specific names. So when Kate sits there, the council, if you look at it clearly, has no regional commissioner. Nairobi is a bit different, where our regional commissioner, Nairobi is a region and a county at the same time, you know. So there are those differences, but operationally, even as recently as last week, I was chairing the same committee. But what we found, Chair, is that just as we're moving with the barrow system, it is more practical and impactful when we step down these teams to the sub-county. And so we have empowered the sub-county teams to have the machinery, the resources, the cash in terms of interest with the sub-county admins. They sit with the DCCs, they sit with the disaster management officer at the sub-county, together with the different agencies, so Red Cross, the police, all entities there, say, okay, there's this problem in Runda, for instance, or in Madare. We need to respond to it, and they're able to do it without having to come to City Hall. So what we have at City Hall is just the strategic leadership. Receives the reports from these places, anything that needs to be escalated is then escalated to us. I can give an example. What we're dealing with, for instance, in Dagoretti South, in Udhiru Rudhimitu yesterday, were landslides, you know. The response to the landslides there in Udhiru Rudhimitu ward and what needs to be done is very different from what we're dealing with in Mabatini, in Madare. But the Mabatini team in Madare has the capacity, the resources, and the ability to sort of the problem without this other one interfering. So, Chair, with the current disaster, because that is how we are currently structured, with the current disaster, for instance, I've been to all parts of the city, as you're saying rightfully, even today. I think this is the second time I've worn a suit. It was just today and the Labor Day, because I had to go. And even after that, I went straight to the ground, Kware and Viwandani. I've been to Mukuru, Kwaruben. I've been to all these places, listening to the people, taking food supplies, giving them, mattresses and blankets, and addressing certain challenges. In Enterprise Road, for instance, where it has been flooding. And that's why we've included in that council, in quotes, Kura and Kenha. They're not provided for there. But all of the challenges you see, like Thika Road being cut off today, UN Avenue being closed this morning, is not a Nairobi County road. It's a Kura road or a Kenha road. And you need them all to be able to engage with you on a day-to-day. We have made the strategic decision, for instance, to reduce the number of these camps. Because what you find, and I'll give you an example of Madare Vocational Center. During the day, you have 1,500 people who are at that camp. But at night, they're only 60. But during the day is when wishers are coming, when supplies are coming, when Tishan account is offering lunch. And so when that is happening, people come. But at night, they find a way to go and sleep. So in this certain case, we don't want to create permanent, IDP camps. And what we've pushed now at the national level, when we've had the whole of nation approach, and what I've advised them, is because we have the lists of those who've been affected, that have been prepared jointly by the chiefs, the assistant county commissioners, my ward admins, the sub-county administrators, and the ward administrators. We know who are those affected from the 60,000 families. Even if you're sorted at that point, leave alone as it keeps adding up, all of those people need to get a cash transfer, which is what we have pushed as Nairobi County. If you give them a cash transfer and the resources and rent for a number of months, the resilience of our people is that they shall find a place. They will find a place to stay and to move. But the dependency that you want to keep them in one place so that you keep giving them relief food and government then is seen to be working is not proper. Remember, there's a social construct that these people have. You cannot remove people from Madare and take them to a camp in Roysambu and expect them now again to integrate from there. There had been a proposal to create transitional housing. This is a proposal from the national government that part of the land, for instance, at Madare Hospital or the land at NYS has, that they provide this housing, construct temporary shelters, and have people come and stay there. And the county has been very opposed to that. Rather, we wanted to improve that argument and tell them, look,
you see,
a problem.
Therein lies a problem.
Yeah.
That the national government is making proposals which do not sit well with the county,
yes.
And yet this council was supposed to be the point of convergence for the two levels of government. And that's why we're still pushing for implementation of the law.
Where the decisions are being made is above this council,
Yeah.
So the kind of
Can I ask
structure...
Governor?
Yeah. Just let me
Because
finish explaining that
just let
part.
me ask a question.
Yeah.
I agree with some of the sentiments. I just want to understand, have you shared these things you're telling us with the national government?
Yes.
Because we have said, even from the other side of the coalition, that you cannot tell people from Madare to look for higher ground.
Yeah.
And we keep hearing the president pronouncing himself. So you are admitting to the cluelessness of the national government that the senator was alluding to. Have you advised the president that this cannot work in Nairobi? I just want to know if you have shared those sentiments.
Chair, in point of order, I think we owe Kenyans to conduct proceedings that are decent, within our standing orders, and with respect. I don't think throwing words and trying to just
so far, nothing has been said that is disrespectful. What we are establishing,
kindly, can you hear me out so that you rule?
Senator Cherargei, what we are establishing is a nexus between the national and county governments, and we would have expected that this council, would be the meeting of minds, would be the point of convergence. I think we are prosecuting this not for our coalition,
no, Chair, don't
but for
be
the people,
intimidated by your Secretary General.
for the people
kindly,
of Nairobi.
Can you rise above partisan interests?
Senator Fatuma Dulo.
Please, can you rise above partisan interests?
Senator Fatuma Dulo.
Chair, sorry we are taking too long on this matter, which is also very important. But I think we have been explained what are the challenges the county is facing vis-a-vis the current legislation. We want to move forward so that we can be able to finish this in time. Can the county tell us when they are going to operationalize this particular legislation? Then we can be able to follow it up and make sure that Kenyans are safe in Nairobi. I think that should be the best way
so I think what's remaining, Governor, is what Senator Dulo has asked, but really for now, for the comfort of the leadership of Nairobi and the people of Nairobi, that commitment, because what is worrying me is that it appears, for example, the cash transfers, where would they originate from? From the county or from the national government or from the disaster fund? So if they're coming from the national government, there needs to be a point of conversation, a point of convergence, because I do not want the governor of Nairobi to be called to meetings in official residences to discuss his constitutional mandate. As a Senate, we must stand firm and say that the governor of Nairobi is bound by certain laws, is bound by certain responsibilities that are constitutional, and we must allow him to execute without being bent this way or that way.
Yeah.
But, if you do not stick to the law, you will be called for meetings over cups of tea, etc.
Yeah.
Things must be institutional, things must be consistent, and they must be predictable. So please just summarize your submission so that we go back to the accounting issues.
Chair, I can give you assurance, and the people of Nairobi, that this governor of Nairobi is not bent this way or that way. That one is not the case with this governor of Nairobi. In fact, in many instances, we're the ones who are guiding some of these responses by even the national government. This council that you're saying, Chair, and I agree with you, it's good to institutionalize, and because in as much as we've been operating it, it shouldn't be ad hoc. There I agree with you. But now the whole of nation approach sits actually above this council. That is chaired by the president and myself, I'm there, and we have the PSs and cabinet secretaries from national government and the CECs from Nairobi. And that is where we've sat, and it's at that forum where I've explained to them that the approach being proposed might work in the rural areas, but for the capital, for Nairobi, we need a different approach. Not just because of the resilience, but just the social structure of our people. I'm very grateful. The national government has actually been very cooperative in terms of this current disaster. We've been able to guide them on where they need to, do some infrastructural work. The DG of Kenha, has been coming to City Hall. The DG of Kura, they've actually surprised. The default disposition of government normally is to have disdain to counties, and you know that. But on this particular instance, and I don't think it's because of my personal relationship with these people, they've actually deferred a lot to the county government. For instance, the engineers that we've sent joint teams between ourselves and Kura to assess quickly, interventions on some of these bridges, some that the county is doing, some that they are doing, has been exceptional. So, Chair, I agree with you as a legislator that the law needs to be implemented as it is. Those who passed it in 2015, never implemented it. in 2015, 16, 17, 2018 didn't implement it, 19, 20, 21, 22. Now when we come in 23, we know the kind of different entity we want to raise. If you look, I think we went on a visit, you must have been there when I was in the Senate, to Vancouver. I don't know if you're there. Yes, Senator Dulo and Senator Cherargei. You remember the structure of disaster response in the city of, in the state, in British Columbia and the entire province. And that they have an entity, the same way we have Nairobi Water Company, that you have an entity that now looks at disaster throughout the year, looks at mitigation, has the dashboards, has the response. Our emergency operations center, for instance, that we have in Nairobi is then coordinated with GSM. We know where the ambulances are. For now, we are using a short code number 1508. For anyone who's in trouble, they're calling it. That is the direction we want to go to. So even as you operationalize this council, which we will do because it's the law that is there now, we are still developing the legislation to create this semi-autonomous entity that then focuses on mitigation and then response, Chair.
I think you have dealt with the issues, save for the funding. Part of the requirement was to establish a fund, a disaster and emergency fund, which I believe is separate from the emergency fund that is established by the PFM. Were you able to come up with regulations for this fund, or that has not been operationalized?
Not yet, not yet. That has not been operationalized.
But the emergency fund exists?
It's not a fund. It's actually a vote to the sector. So the sector has a budget.
No. There's an emergency fund that is the 2% term of revenues that is required under the PFM.
Yes, that is there.
That has been established.
That has been established. It's not been resourced to that level, 2% of the revenue. Of course, because of obvious challenges. You look at, 2%, the exchequer releases, the budget that you've set up, the things that need to be done. So it's not resourced to that extent, but the fund does exist. The interventions that you're saying, for instance, the 7 billion that national government is talking about, that should also include these cash transfers, that will come from that national kitty. That is what we pushed. That is the position we put, because they have a contingent fund of 7 billion, And we told them last year during El Nino, for instance, and Nairobi didn't flood, was because of the investment we had put in to the Green Army and equipment, and Nairobi County didn't get a shilling during that response. Possibly we were victims of our success, because they said, look, Nairobi is working, and I don't know where the money went to, but we didn't get resources that time. This time we're saying, first of all, before even giving us additional money, give us our exchequer release. The last exchequer